Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Ba ba da ba da ba ba.
Yeah, Julian, put the music in there. Um, Welcome to Left Look. This is the premier independent podcast from the Gatto Institute, where we will be taking a look at the arts, culture, and entertainment to provide you with an unbiased left-wing perspective. Bienvenue à Left Look, le podcast indépendant de première classe de l'Institut Gatto, où nous examinerons l'art, la culture et le divertissement pour vous fournir une perspective de gauche impartiale.
Just isn't the same without that new Pecheron.
Yeah, and I didn't give the Canadian perspective. I'm sorry, a left wing. Yeah, so it didn't end with that beautiful a de gauche.
A de gauche.
But whatever, I did my best. I'm not.
Well, I think it was pretty good. Your French wasn't too bad either.
I'm not Julian. What am I gonna do?
I just realized too, since we don't have the intro, we're gonna need to talk for like an extra 20 seconds here.
No, Julian's going to put it in, and I have no doubt he'll also...
Today is Sunday, September umpteenth.
Code over us to insert his own voice as he did last time, too.
Yeah, I heard he did that. That's kind of weird, but, pop off.
Speaking of which, I'm Jacob. Welcome, Brother DJ.
Thank you. Hello, it's great to be here.
And Brother
Julian. On this August the 30th.
Oh. I had it. You had no trust.
Okay. I just wanted to help. I'm trying to contribute.
Brother Julian is here in spirit only today, busy with personal events, and so I thought we would just dive right in.
We're diving. Julian is here in spirit. If the listeners do hear him, that is his apparition, communicating vocally through this medium.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey everybody, it's Julian in the edit booth here, and I would just like to say that all of my little insertions prior to this were done, just as I listen. I don't listen to the whole thing through before thinking out my comments. So DJ has somehow a month in advance predicted exactly how I would respond to this episode, and I'm just a little weirded out by being outed as a ghost.
So go ahead and tick that off, ghost box on your clues list.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who doesn't get that joke, good. But we're diving in. What's on the agenda today, Jacob?
I thought we would apologize as we usually do at the start of the episode, and so Julian's not here, but he gets both the apologies for this week. And the first apology is that in the last two episodes, I questioned Julian about the movie Oppenheimer. Mm-hmm. Both times, and we do like a similar bit about it, and I just forgot about it in the intervening week, and then questioned him again. But I'm blaming Julian at the end of this apology, because you could tell that he remembered, and he just didn't say anything, and just let us do the same bit again on the show. But I apologize all the same. And then, another apology for Julian is that I was missing the last 6 minutes of the last episode. It is sus. Nothing nefarious, though, just incompetence. I was going to be talking about Fitch, the credit rating agency, downgrading the U.S. from AAA to AA+. It's not important. The whole point of the bit was that it's not important. And what you need to know is that Moody's is the only credit rating agency that matters in the world.
Right. It was funny. He asked me, when he was putting that together, he was asking, did your recording cut out, or was it just Jacob's?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he sent me a little snippet of the of his version of it all compiled. And your recording just stops, just dead in the middle of what you're talking about.
It's so weird, right? I must have hit a space bar, too excitedly or something like that.
Yeah, it could have been anything. There's so many shortcuts on this program that just stop the recording or start a new one. So I've personally just I keep my hands away from the keyboard.
I keep Audacity minimized now. How many episodes am I going to be the cause of failure before I get it?
Well, ideally we'll be in a studio making bank, but
wouldn't that be
this will
nice?
be somebody else's problem.
Someone reached out to me last week that I've known for a long time, and said that they're a big fan of the show, and that felt really good.
Yeah.
Only a couple hundred listeners, and we got some Ontario listeners.
Hey, yeah, we're clawing our way up there.
And to finish the apology segment for this week, I would like to continue to tarnish my reputation by talking about Hawaii, because I don't know why I hate myself. The Lahaina fires have really captured my I don't know, my ire and my fascination, right? Because
are those the same ones as previously on Maui?
Yes. Lahaina is the name of the town. Doesn't matter.
Was the name of the town?
Yeah, incinerated. Yeah, I'm still in the same point. You know, people shouldn't be traveling to Hawaii. The governor shouldn't be encouraging people to travel to Hawaii. And then, but you know, the point is that people are using this to use as a lot of leftists especially are using this as a talking point for native sovereignty, and that's just so beyond reasonable, beyond, you know, the possible, that it doesn't make any sense to me. And I brought some stats and some, you know, fun facts that I thought would be, you know, fun to talk about Hawaii.
Yeah.
And so I said last week that the population, or a couple weeks ago, I guess now, that the population of Hawaii is about 1 million people. It's actually 1.4 million. And there are 310,000 natives on the island. So that means that there are about a quarter natives on the island, right?
Yeah.
There are 370,000 Hawaii natives on the continental U.S., meaning they have left Hawaii and now live in the continental U.S., meaning there are more Hawaii natives living in the United States than there are on Hawaii, right?
Crazy.
Exactly. You don't have sovereignty. You have totally absorbed yourself into the United States, right? And
yeah, is that just living abroad, or is that purely in the United States?
Purely in the United States. There's more living abroad too, right? Australia, Polynesia.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't want to straw man these people who are going on about native sovereignty for Hawaii here, that, you know, they are right technically. That Hawaii was never annexed, or there's no treaty, there's no surrender. It's just that one day the Americans decided that the queen who was running it wasn't tough enough to keep them out, and that was it, right? And that's the end of it. And you know, it's sad. It's not right. It's definitely not legal that that's the way it is, right? But that it is the way it is. And I wanted to try and make this point that things are not always the way that, you know, we talk about them, at least, right? And it's an example I use from Greek history all the time, and it's who won the Peloponnesian War, right? The Spartans won the Peloponnesian War, according to the history books, right? They burned Athens to the ground, basically. And but did you know that in Greece today that no one speaks Spartan Greek, Doric Greek, and everyone speaks Attica Greek, Athens Greek? And so my question to you is, like, did they really lose, right? Like, they are the legacy today, right? They still survive, right? So they won a minor unimportant skirmish with a regional rival, right? They survived and Sparta was wiped, right? And Hawaii is the same thing, basically, right? Like, America is going to conquer the earth, right? And that you didn't get a treaty on the way to it means you're not living in the same reality that they are. They are liars and they're hypocrites, of course they are, right? And barbaric despoilers. But there's nothing you can do about it at the same time. You can, there are revolutionary thinkers from Poland, especially. I've brought this up before, that when Poland was divided up between Austria, Prussia, and Russia, that the greatest revolutionary thought that they had was that we should not rebel at all and just work really hard to try and maintain our own families and communities, and that will keep the culture alive, right? And it did. It kept the culture alive in between the occupations. The Warsaw Uprising of 1944 was crushed, right? 50,000 dead or something like that. So rising up against an imperial power is so not recommended, right? Like, so not within the bounds of possibility. So,
especially one with such a dogmatic focus on military like the States.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to come to a greater understanding of the topic. And but yeah, that's the end of that bit for this week.
Yeah, perhaps, just a preservation of culture, because honestly, when you think about it, Hawaiian culture is really what dominates Hawaii more than is it part of the state, yes or no.
Exactly, exactly.
And there's so many places like that, especially Polynesian islands. I think of Okinawa. Okinawa is in the exact same situation as Hawaii, just is absolutely a sovereign territory, or should be, but isn't recognized at all by anyone.
Yeah,
Because it's a Japanese island, whatever, the states gave it to them.
yeah, the states gave it to them after they took it from them. Yeah,
Yeah,
never
just
one thought about making them an independent people with national self
yeah,
determination.
but if you look at their culture,
Yeah,
completely removed from Japan
yeah,
and
and
pretty much all
China.
of its neighbors.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy, but fostering cultures, I don't know, maybe that's the long game. Maybe
There's
maybe
a
the moral here is that culture supersedes national borders.
there's a Polynesian island that has decided that there's no hope for saving their homeland. They live on
Hmm.
a reef, basically, right? Like
Right.
a sandy beach.
Right, the sea levels are rising, so they're just like, whatever, our
Yeah,
island's gonna disappear.
yeah, and so they've downloaded it, or they're gonna try and create like a 3D environment that the descendants can go in to see what their ancestral lands were like before they were swallowed by the sea.
Yeah,
Right?
dang.
Culture is tricky. Culture is tricky,
Yeah, yeah,
and
it really is.
I've exposed that I don't really know what I'm talking about when it comes to that time and time again. Like when we talk about the Ukrainians and the Russians and the ethnic differences between them, right? Like, and
Mm.
I'm just unconvinced, basically, that they're separate languages, right? But then
Yeah.
you talk about I listen to some linguistic experts, and they'll talk about how the different French dialects, which are all extinct, right? Like there's
Hmm.
only one French nowadays, right? I,
Yeah.
I think there's 3 or 4 million people in Brittany, and
Uh-huh.
only like 50,000 people can speak Breton,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah, or like the Celtic dialects too. They're all just
Breton is a
kind of
Celtic
these.
dialect.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I picked it, because it's the most strange of the
Hmm.
French, removed from the French, and it's been destroyed. And the southern ones, Daquitaine and
Hmm.
Languedoc, they're all gone too, right? And do people see that as a genocide, or do they see it as the French preserving their culture, right? Like I don't know, and it
Yeah,
seems so
it's
arbitrary.
especially in linguistics, it's such a touchy subject because locally, these people are speaking their dialects and not giving a shit. But nationally, yeah, has France cracked down? Do they have they have a word for it, the French model, the core model.
Yep.
This is the standardized French that everyone needs to speak because Paris said so.
Yeah.
But Louis in the back countries of Gascon, he doesn't care. He's
Mhm.
speaking whatever he wants.
He speaks French nowadays. No, you're wrong. They Gascony is extinct basically as a language.
Yeah, as their like inherent deep language, yeah, that's gone. That's been bullied out. But do they still have their own dialects? Are they still going to use the words they want? Yeah, you can't.
No, in France especially, I'm trying to make it clear that in France especially, that they're so imperial, so fascistic about asserting their language as universal, that there is none, and that nothing has survived. Basically, in Brittany, I just said 50,000 to 4 million. It's
Hmm.
even less in Gascony, which is around where Aquitaine is. That
Hmm.
there's even less speakers of the Languedoc from the that is the original dialect that
Yeah,
evolved
yeah,
from the vulgar Latin, right? It's been hunted out of existence.
yeah, yeah. Of course it has.
Yeah.
That's the idea behind a national language. What I'm trying to say is that it will naturally mutate. There's never going to be, I don't know, unless you have chips implanted in people's heads, you're never going to fully stamp out what, naturally mutates in language.
I think the natural mutation of language is over, and that we have entered a world where no linguistic expert has anything to offer because of the transmutation of language through the internet, and the hyper dominance of English and the disappearance of English dialects basically overnight. Right? We don't have an accent, you and I, basically, right?
Well, see, that's the funny thing.
Well, I mean, we don't have an accent. I say when I say that, I mean we sound Californian. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Which, yeah, it's weird right now in linguistics because we're definitely living in a period of change.
Hmm. I
The
think
dominant factor of Californication, the Valley Girl rays, as they call it, has really pervaded a lot of people's natural speaking tones because of the internet, because of things like Vine and TikTok over the past decade.
exactly. There's not that telephone game where you're trying to you say one word at the one end of the chain, and then 300 people have to listen to it and say it to their next person
Mm.
beside them, and that naturally shifts tones and things like that, right? But
Mm-hmm.
now because everyone can reference people that they see as authorities, right? I think things are gonna stick and settle maybe for hundreds of years at a time now, and that languages that have survived, French, English, and Chinese, basically, China, the language of China,
Easy
they're
there, Trump.
yeah, they're gonna become, super dominant, super concentrated as well. Basically, like a what the French did from the 1500s to 2000 to centralize the French language and impose it over France.
Mm-hmm.
Only it'll be natural and through the internet and in each of those three language peoples.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be super interesting to travel like 100 years into the future and see where language is.
Hmm.
Because I don't know, they do, I haven't looked into it extensively, but from what I do know, there's about three or four different, I don't think diaspora, dialect, that's the word I'm looking for. Dialects are kind of emerging in North America.
Mm.
And so you've got the West Coast Valley Girl, which is the one you see online a lot over the place. But
Hmm.
then you have the Northeast, what do they call it? There's like a vowel shift going on over here. Our
Hmm.
A's are weird, and people don't like it. And then obviously there's this whole thing going on in the South, the Southern drawl. The Southeast is coagulating in this weird drawl that has these Creole influences, but is also being manipulated by the internet. And then you've got the Midwest kind of just being super isolated and rural, and they're kind of just, you know, uh, the internet, like you mentioned, isn't as pervasive. It's not influencing them as much as it is the other dialects, and it's strange.
Exactly.
The internet could just have a stranglehold any day now, but language is so hard to keep track of.
Yeah, for sure. It's just an interesting topic to think about too, though.
Hmm.
I'm basically dry though on that. Did you have anything you wanted to conclude?
Um, it's such a shame these fires that it even happened, that there was basically no help as far as I can tell. I haven't read into it extensively, but
They were here's something that'll make that point. They were
mm,
already suing the oil and gas companies for exposing them to this, basically,
hmm.
and then the fire happened. So they're in the
Oof,
middle of a negligence suit, and
yeah,
then the negligence causes the damage. Right? Just
that's a little suspicious.
too on the nose. Not
Yeah,
suspicious. I don't think it's just depressing. I mean, I
yeah,
mean, I see
super
why
depressing.
you're suspicious, but I don't think there's anything nefarious
I
there.
don't think so either, but it would be something worth looking into, I think.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so moving on to the next bit. Bum ba
Sure.
dum bum ba dum. Sorry. They
No, I like it. I like the vocal stingers. That's all we got.
we do miss the soundboard, man. I had a law win yesterday. That
Oh
felt
yeah,
really good. I
yeah. What's going on with that?
So I've been talking about these First Amendment audits for fucking ever, right, on this
Right.
show, right? I love them. They're a phenomenon in the United States where people take cameras around and they film places that are unusual, but they are definitely and totally allowed to be there and filming, right?
Hmm.
And so it trips up officials, mostly cops is who I care about, but public officials of any capacity. And if a cop is then gonna arrest you for a very protected activity, it shows the lie that there is a rule of law or that there's democracy or freedom in America, right? You are at the
Hmm.
whim of the tyranny of the least educated gorilla that you are always dealing with, right?
Well, hey, whoa, they're educated.
No,
They're
they're not.
educated on how to oppress people.
Yeah, I guess, right? They're nobody we don't send our best kids to be cops. We send them to be doctors, finance, and lawyers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, we abuse them so that they will pick those three, right?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, hey, that's what's going to launch her family into credibility. You
Yeah.
got to do this.
And
You're a smart kid.
there's no brain power left for cops. And the funniest thing about the whole thing is that cops are really well paid. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you encourage those kids to do police work, you probably get better police work, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's where the parents with dumb kids send their children.
Yeah. Anyways, wow, I'm
Joking,
telling
of
our
course.
friend.
Joking. Absolutely a joke. There's lots of different people on the force.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's
Most
a
of
bad
them are bad.
reputation.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of them are racist and pigs and brigands, but
Yeah. Yeah,
there's a silver lining.
There are good cops. There are good people who are cops,
Mm-hmm.
but they're completely outweighed by the intended evil of the institution. But anyways, the First Amendment audits have finally made it to Canada, which is
Right.
a hilarious fucking just turn of phrase because there is no First Amendment in Canada, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But you do have something called your Section 2 rights, which is your freedom to assemble, freedom to speech, freedom to protest, things like that.
Right, right. Love them.
So I'm watching a video yesterday, right? And this guy is filming, and he films past a police department, and they say, "Yeah, you're cool to do that." And then there's a bunch of signs at the back of the police department around the police parking lot, right?
Right.
There is no fence, right? It's just an open parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Civilian and cop cars in there.
Oh, okay. So
There are-
probably where the cops park to do their shift or something.
Yeah, where they leave the police vehicles when they're not using them, where they leave their vehicles while they're using police vehicles. It's their parking lot.
Right.
They have 3 signs on the entrances to them, right? Police vehicles only. No loitering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what was the last one? But they're not. It's not restricted area.
Right.
Restricted area. No, police vehicles only, and no loitering. If you'll notice, none of those say trespassing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And restricted area, there's rules around restricted areas. Restricted areas have to be restricted. They have to have fences, and they have to they have to have gates. They have to be easily noticeable for people, right? So that they are in fact restricted, and you can't just have some nobody say that this section of the library is restricted. I need you to leave, right?
Yeah, that stuff got to be in behind something, locked up if it's restricted.
Exactly. And so my inclination was that those signs are of no force, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I looked into it. I looked into it pretty deeply, and the trespass laws in Canada don't have a public-private distinction like they do in America. In America, if you are publicly trespassed, you can't be, basically. You can only be trespassed from public if you are in the commission of another crime already, disturbing the peace, assault. I don't know. Any number of crimes, right?
So you're fleeing from something.
No, I don't understand the question.
It sounded as if you were saying that these trespassing laws only apply if you have already committed a felony.
Yes. Okay. I don't get the fleeing part then.
Well, if you're getting away from that felony, if you were making your way out of a situation.
I guess. I still don't quite see it. I'm going to keep rolling, see if
Sure.
you can rephrase. So anyways, there's no distinction in Canada. What the trespass law says here is that the owner or controller has the ability to kick you out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so the cop says, here's the trespass law, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are the owner and controller, and we say you can't be here, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, that is interesting, because that sounds like a technical violation of the Constitution, and nothing gets me harder than that, right?
Yeah.
And so the Constitution says you have the freedom to assemble, but in Section 1, the most important section of the Canadian Constitution, it says all rights within are able to be infringed if done by law, right?
Okay.
It's basically the whole thing.
Yeah. So none of the rest really matters, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's 33 or 35 also says even if it's not by law and it's just done with like emergency powers, that they can do that and it's okay, but they have to put a time limit on it. I think it's 5 years or something like that. But anyways, so Section 1 says you can't have a violation of the Constitution unless it's an emergency sorry, that's from Section 33, but unless it's by law, right?
Right.
And so I come back to these signs, right? What is the law behind these signs, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a no loitering law, right?
Sure.
But who's saying I'm loitering if I'm going to go film some police cars in their police parking lot, right?
Yeah.
That's not loitering. That's me there with a specific purpose. And in fact, we've done the loitering bit before. Loitering is basically an impossible charge to make stick because, the person's purpose is to vibe and exist, right? Like,
yeah, to stand around and look suspicious goes contrary to just standing and existing.
Exactly.
Oh no, I'm standing in this parking lot twirling my evil mustache and with my silk top hat and my cape.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you can get loitering to stick with that, but come on.
Yeah. So I go back to these signs, right? And I'm like, so what's the law there? And I've decided there's no law. There's maybe policy, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe in the building they have like a leadership staff, the chief and a couple lieutenants and maybe a captain or somebody like that, right? Mm-hmm. And they make the rules through committee, right? And that they've decided that this is a restricted area and that no people should be allowed back there, right?
Right.
At best, that's what that is. And policy is technically a part of the law, but it is not law. You know what I mean?
Right.
It can be used to enforce the law, but it can't be used to trump your rights, right? Is basically the way I'm going to explain it. There's the Constitution, which is the highest law. There's black letter law, which is basically as strong and as binding. And then there's regulations, which are agencies that have been given the power to create law-like things by the government. The Ontario Securities Commission has no laws, right? They have regulations.
Right.
If you are a certain size of business and you're going to trade in securities, you must give this notice in this paper in this file, right?
Yeah. Things where if you're not doing it, then here's a fine, quite likely.
So that a violation of your Section 2 right? To have the Ontario Securities Commissions do that. And it's not law, but because it's regulations enabled by law, right? That means that it's okay. Returning to the parking lot, right? What we have is policy, which is below regulations, the lowest level of law, right? Which is nobody's been authorized to do that. They are the controller of some place and have set up policies for their interactions with the public, just so that they have something to refer to in case they're ever challenged on their things, right?
Right.
And so the policy, it doesn't work, right? That's a violation of your Constitution. That's no good, right? You should be like unequivocally allowed in that parking lot to do basically whatever you want as long as you're not breaking the law, right?
Yeah, sounds like it. You want to eat lunch in that parking lot? Go for it.
And so I emailed the person who taught me constitutional law. I don't think I'll say her name.
Sure.
I'll call her Professor M.
Okay.
Professor M, I emailed her and I said, hey, watch this video. I'm pretty sure that this is a violation of the Constitution and that nobody's ever talked about it in Canada before. And she was like, yeah, you're right. And I sent it to her because she teaches the first year's constitutional law. And so that means I just exposed like 180 kids who will end up leading major sectors of Ontario at one point to the fact that there is no rule of law in Canada. There's no democratic rights, right? Like, it's a joke. It's a sick joke, in fact. Yep. And I hope some of them get it. She told a story one time, just to cap off why I love her.
Sure.
Where she was talking about the speed limit on the highway, right? And whether or not the laws in Canada mean that we have a rule of law. And that she said that one time when she was telling this story that she had a cop who was then becoming a lawyer in her class. And she said that the cop said that all cops love the 100-kilometer-an-hour speed limit because it gives them a reason to pull over whoever they want.
Yeah.
Right? Because nobody goes 100. It's too slow, right?
Yeah, especially for that environment.
Yeah. Built into the whole system is arbitrariness, right? And we all know it, right? We all can feel it. And yet the judges in Ontario have no idea, or they don't care, or they're fascists, right? And
Yep.
so I end this bit where I do all bits about the Ontario judiciary, or the Canadian judiciary generally, and that's that they're contemptible, and that's why I'm always in contempt of court.
Yep. Preach it, brother.
Yeah.
If you're gonna let signs do your heavy lifting and just fucking beat up people for no reason,
Yeah.
fuck them.
There was a First Amendment audit in America that I would like to reference that it expresses why this makes me so angry, right? It's being made to submit to like people with less intelligence than you by like a significant majority, right? Like people who don't have any business giving commands, right? And there was a sign that they had posted when they saw this First Amendment auditor doing his thing, and the sign says, "quote You cannot take no pictures," unquote. Right?
Cannot take no pictures.
It's an actual command to take pictures, but can you imagine being told by some illiterate what you can and not do, can and cannot do, right?
Yeah,
And
that's gotta hurt.
and then you have to take that, right? And like on top of that, because of qualified immunity, which means that cops are, on under the presumption that they're doing right unless they do wrong, and that cops know that, they have this attitude like, I don't care, take it up with the judge, right?
Yeah,
This is what's going on, and you have no right to defend yourself from it, right? And
basically.
then combine that attitude with a matrix of just like stupidity, like an infantile intelligence, right? Like it's disgusting. It makes one want to revolt, right?
Well, yeah, they tried that for a while and it didn't really get them anywhere. And well, now we're in 2023 and COVID's coming back. So hey, fuck it.
COVID's coming back in a big way. You want to talk about
Yeah,
that for a sec? Or no?
sure. I don't know much about it, but if you do, enlighten me.
I don't at all, but like I just wanted to say that we said on Left Look, I think near the start of the pandemic, or probably 2021,
Right.
that what we thought would should happen is that the Security Council should declare war on COVID, and that there should be basically no politics until that disease was eradicated, basically, right? In the third world and the first world. That we should have given free vaccines to every human being on Earth and destroyed it, right?
Yep.
And we could have. We had
could
the
have.
opportunity. We had the ability. It was within our resources. It wasn't expensive to do, right?
Nope.
I've been triple vaccinated at this point, right? I'm sure you've been quadrupled, right?
Yep.
And if we only got one each, but everyone in the world got one, right?
At the same time.
It would just have burned out. It would have just died off. And yet,
Yeah, or if nothing else, we would have had the means to respond to it in an efficient manner.
and there's no application of Hanlon's razor here either, which says that never assume malice where stupidity will do. There's too many brains in government, right? There's too many big brain dudes who are like, oh yeah, like if we don't solve this will continue to just rack our rivals in the second and third world, right? Like, because they won't have the ability to resist it like we do with our financial paramountcy, basically, right? And that it'll continue to evolve and get worse and worse in these places, right?
Yeah.
But how short-sighted can it be? Like, the people, it will get back into your communities. It will cause deficiencies and inefficiencies, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, 100% malice, and you're describing the results right now. We're getting to the point. I think this sounds like a comeuppance. COVID has come to the point where it's like, hey, I actually don't care. I've been chilling out in Africa for 2 years.
yeah,
I'm wicked now. I'm wild. Hey, have you ever heard about the bubonic plague? Because this is exactly what happened then too.
yeah.
I'm coming back and I'm pissed. And now we have the beautiful sprinkling of contempt. Nobody gives a shit now. When was the last time you saw somebody wear a mask out in public?
Oh, I know. I'm gonna
Right?
have to start again soon.
Yeah, I've been doing. I don't want to sound holier than thou, but I've been doing that this whole time. And it makes me very self-conscious because I am typically the only person in an entire store or like a whole social host of people trying to just, I don't want to breathe the stinky air.
Yeah.
I don't want to get sick. It's just like, folks, we had 3 years, you know?
1.5 million people have died in America over it, right? Like,
Yeah, in America alone,
in
worldwide,
America, the most rich country on earth, right?
right? The counts from China, South Asia, Africa, just were ridiculous when it was peak, and
it never really slowed down either. There was like months ago, China was seeing 50 million cases a week or something like that, right? Something
there was
ungodly.
A dip. There was a dip, and people went, "Oh, we're good, we're fine, whatever. The numbers are down." You sure they were for a minute? And it's like you say, you know, that, and that's what really grinds my gears about this. We absolutely had the means we were sitting on stockpiles of vaccines. We absolutely had the means of just shipping them out, of just sending them to the other humans. No, let's sit on them. Let's let them go bad because we don't want to share.
Yeah, the collected willpower and wealth and just, control that we have, we could do crazy things if we set our minds to them. It would destroy our species, but we could create a pyramid that touched the moon, right? Yeah. Like we have so much ability within our species, and just nothing gets done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so gross.
A lot of just selfish intent takes over.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to move on to the next bit.
Sure, yeah, just COVID looks like it's making a comeback. Wear your mask, folks. Stay safe. Wash your hands. That's the best I got. I can't do more for you. If you can get a booster, go get a booster. But whatever.
All right. I think I wanted to touch on Niger. Again
sure. Yeah. Week. What's going on? I read something about the Security Council basically told them to get bent.
Yeah. The Security Council's not going to move. That's France's territory, and France would use their veto if any real Security Council vote ever came to it.
Right.
ECOWAS is not invaded after the Economic Community of West African Nations has not invaded Niger like they said they would after the deadline.
Right.
There has been a meeting with the person who has appeared as the leader of the coup since then, and a representative from Nigeria, the ex-president of Nigeria, and they said, we need you guys to basically put this guy back in power right away. And the response from the coup government was like, make us, and our counteroffer to you is give us 3 years to do a transition of power, right? That's actually really reasonable. 3 years for a transition of power after a coup. And they're talking about prosecuting their president, their ex-president, Bazoum, I think his name is, with high treason, right? They're going to execute this guy, right? And they're saying, we will reintegrate with liberal society within 3 years. No problem, right? Just leave us the fuck alone, right? And
do you think that holds any water?
None. God, none. And the French are probably working on their special operation right now, right? Like, we'll see. But I did see today that Gabon, which is not an ECOWAS member, it is just south of Nigeria, but it is a West African nation still, basically. Right? It's in West Africa. It's a Central African nation, as that's what most geographical people would classify it. It's just north of the Congo, but they suffered a coup as well recently. And so that's the 8th coup in West Africa, the greater West Africa, since 2020.
Jesus.
Yeah. And so there are now 4 nations that are not in compliance with ECOWAS, and then there are nations on the periphery of ECOWAS who also speak French and have an interest in the outcome, who are suffering coups as well. I think that the West African front is shaping up, like it's becoming more likely.
When you say more likely of what?
Just conflict, and then it spirals. There's this bit from Thucydides, the father of all history, right?
Mm.
And he talks about how war starts between the Spartans and the Athens, actually. Spartan and Athens.
I'm bringing it
Just
back
like
around.
And he basically says it's a farce, right? That there's honor and there's allies, and then there's and the allies are schemers, basically, right? And that your honor and your position and your fear of the enemy will always drag you into whatever your allies end up doing, right?
Right.
And so I think if conflict breaks out between these West African nations and they're trying to figure out how they're going to politically organize from now on, that the Americans and the French will get involved, and then the Chinese will get involved because honor and position, and they'll make allies and things like that. It will spiral if things spiral. I truly hope everyone just backs down and just lets the country of Niger just figure it out for 3 years. It's not going to be good for Niger, right? They're already starving under the blockades that they've gotten, right? Already, right? Like, and they've got 3 years to go. Let them do it, right? Leave them alone, for God's sakes, right?
Yeah. What do you think their goal? And when I say they, I mean West Africa as a whole. What do you think? Are they just trying to eke
West
out their
Africa's
own nationalism?
no. It would be an anti-imperial thing, right? There's no
Okay.
nationalism there per se. I mean, there are, right? There are small nationalities, the Igbo in Nigeria, for instance, right? But yeah, no. The only true nationality in Africa for me is the Bantu peoples, and they are massively spread out, basically from South Africa to West, right?
Right.
And if they were to ever politically organize and figure out that they are an entity, they could have serious control. But that other than that, everyone else is so divided and so small and speaks, and if they aren't divided, they speak English or French, right?
Right.
And so there's nothing to really organize around nationalism-wise. But I do see an anti-imperial Marxist kind of anarchist, I guess, is probably a better kind of bent to it, right? That they just want to be in charge of their own shit, basically, right? And that they don't need a mythos like a nationality or something like that to rally around. It's just like shit's awful, and it's been awful here for 100 years, right? Like 200-300 years.
So these coups are sort of in response to that, you think?
I think the Gabon coup has to be in response to the lack of response from ECOWAS to Niger. They threatened, and then they didn't move, right?
Right.
That delegitimizes your threats.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that allows other people to take bigger gambles, bigger risks, right? And it makes your allies to, support you less and things like that. It is all perspective and prestige and things like that, subtle changes. But I just thought I would update people because I did talk about it and said hopefully it would work out.
It kind of doesn't sound like it is.
No, it isn't.
But yeah, I guess we'll keep you posted. Sounds like something big is developing. But yeah, what you think France is gonna try to nip this in the bud, or what?
Yeah, I think France will lead a coalition of nations, and like I talked about Operation Serval in Mali from 2012, I think that was. They landed a bunch of rapid response forces, spear-tipped by special operations, helicopters, and then backed up by like militias of these West African nations, right? And that's what I think they'll do. They'll try and topple the government with some kind of spear thrust operation like that. Yeah.
Well, have to watch out, I guess. I really don't know anything about the region nor its politics, so wish I could offer more, but I'm dumb.
Oh, I'm dumb too. Like, I just the little that I know about this region is so minuscule, right? And trying to keep track of it all is just crazy. The Italian foreign minister was basically calling for peace, right?
Right.
And I remember thinking, what interest does Italy have in there, right? Why did the paper mention that the Italian foreign minister was calling for peace, right? Whatever, though.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it was just a publicity thing, just looks good. Be nice. Yeah, that's basically how Obama got his Nobel Prize. Is
not be nice, act nice.
Act nice, yes.
Obama. I saw an Obama quote this morning.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
he says, Pete Buttigieg can't be president because he's gay and he's too short. Isn't that fucking great?
Yeah, that sums up America pretty well.
Speaking of summing up America, I thought this would be a great point to put our sponsor for this week's episode this week. And this week we are sponsored by Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin is a fashion design brand that has now put out their F-35 t-shirt brands. And we just think they're so stylish. And, I think they've committed to, ethically sourcing all their materials and things like that.
Good for them.
And so we encourage you to buy the t-shirt from Lockheed Martin.
Yeah. Go out and buy one or two. You know what? Just get one for the whole family. Look great. They feel great, and you can wear some clothes knowing that you're supporting not only a great fashion brand but the environment too.
Mm-hmm. The Lockheed Martin selling clothes is not as funny as when one of their recruiters got doxxed, right?
I didn't hear about that.
Well, it was hilarious. I hate to pick on someone like this because it feels misogynistic, right? But like, it's not. It's anti-liberal hatred that I have. That's all it is. And so this young woman, she's in her mid to late 20s, right? And she's it's just her profile from LinkedIn, and it says she, her, right? And she something about, I love how my job introduces me to the most amazing people. Lockheed Martin recruiter. she fires missiles, over the horizon to blow up villagers, and she's talking about she, her, the genders she'd rather be identified with. It's like, actually, you're a despoiler.
Yeah. Go tell all the innocents you've murdered your pronouns.
Barbarian. How about that? Yeah. But I thought it was funny, and so I mentioned it. But yeah, please support our sponsor this week.
If you can, times are tough.
Yeah, I get it. Did you know that so Saudi Arabia has announced that they're going to be joining BRICS, right?
Sure. Yeah, I kind of heard them in the talks. I didn't know they announced they're going to join it.
Sorry, yeah, right. They're still in talks.
Okay.
Nah. This isn't the point of the bit, right? I'm bringing it up to show why this news is coming out, right?
Okay.
So Saudi Arabia is in talks to join BRICS. We talked about the gold-backed currency they're trying to form a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. Immediately after that news comes out, the news hits that the Saudi Arabians have been killing women and children refugees from the Ethiopia conflict that show up in there. Just thousands of them, apparently. They've just been murdering women and children.
Trying to come through the border, right? The land border?
There's no land border. They had to jump the
right. They had to go through Yemen, I believe.
Yeah. And well, I don't think they'd go through Yemen, right? Because Yemen's a war zone right now. And the Saudis are in the commission of a genocide against the Yemenis right now.
Jeez, what is with the Saudis?
They are religious fascists, in fact. Yeah, I saw a picture of what the American flag would look like in the style of the Saudi Arabian flag. And if you see the Saudi Arabian flag, it's a saber, and then it's got the prophet's name. I think it's the prophet's name on top. It could be the House of Saud's
on the green
name.
Field, right?
Yeah, and it was a blue flag, just blue field, right? And it said Jesus in white, and then in white underneath it had an AR-15.
Good old AR-15, classic.
Yeah, it's their what's it called? Their ancestral weapon, right?
Mm-hmm. You'd think they would have gone for the spear of Leonidas or whatever it is.
Yeah, it was whoever made this was mocking them.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, no, Saudi Arabia is a country I just never understood, right? Like,
a little hermetic, a little kind of veiled. Just like, ooh, we don't want anyone to know what we're doing because it's probably killing people.
it's the Americans and the Brits' fault, right? They were so scared of an Arab superstate
Mm-hmm.
in the aftermath of World War II because they had all the oil and about 400 million people, right?
Right.
And that's a true rival in the world, right, for the Anglosphere. Not a rival that could win, but like a
Mm.
rival we would actually have to devote resources and time and
Yeah.
blood and treasure to
It
fighting.
would be
right?
annoying. Ugh.
Yeah, yeah. The Cold War was an annoyance. This would be an actual task, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they just prevented it. What they did is they put religious fascists in charge of the most holy sites of a portion of the Arab world, right?
Mm.
And then created like rinky-dink republics that surround it, right? Egypt, Syria, Iraq, those
Mm-hmm.
places don't exist, right? They're Arab. They're all Arabs,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't make any sense. It should have been the Arab Confederation, the Arab Republic, something
Mm-hmm.
like that, right? In the 50s, the president of Egypt managed to unify Syria and Egypt for a bit.
Right.
They
Yeah.
were one country. Al Nasser was his name, and then the Americans went back to work and they got rid of that and him very quickly, right?
Yeah. Unification. Can't have that.
And so this is the fruits of their labor, right? A religious kingdom sitting on a mountain of oil that is now, desperate to break free of the leash that we have held them on for so
Yeah.
many years, right? Instead of a light partner that we could have beaten in a showdown a couple decades ago, right?
Yeah. We're gonna just let them chill. Just let them vibe with their Islam. Have another golden age.
I agree. Definitely let them chill, let them vibe, and we buy the oil for agreed upon prices.
Yeah.
They'd have all the oil and they could monopolize, and that was the real fear.
Sure.
If they just shut off the tap at any point, that grinds everything to a halt, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Americans were afraid of. They had used all their own oil to win World War II. There was nothing left in Texas and Pennsylvania and things
Right.
like that. And that's what they were worried about. But they shouldn't have been so worried about it, right? Because they have created an atmosphere of fear by playing into their fears, right? And now nobody will in the Arab world will ever, ever, ever work with the Americans, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep. They played their cards, and now everyone knows. It's just okay. Guess we're not going over there. Let's just start killing everyone. Let's just start a genocide. That'll work.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's bonkers. This is only half related. I was watching this video on crowds, and
The madness of crowds.
well, kind of just the maybe not the madness, but the logic. How do crowds escalate into dire situations? A crowd crush is what they call them.
Yep.
And a big part of the video was devoted to the Hajj, which is the mass migration of Muslims to the holy sites,
It's
primarily.
just the one.
Yeah,
Mecca.
just Mecca. There's other migrations for different events, but the Hajj is
They
to
call
go to
them
Mecca.
different things.
Yeah. Yeah, Mecca, which is in Saudi Arabia, which is apparently they've done a lot, but what got me, right? And I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, "Oh, wow, that's so much culture. That's so much beauty and just awe-inspiring, just these photos alone, just these video snippets of people walking
The Kaaba is
through.
beautiful.
Just right, so much architectural
It's deep history. The Kaaba has been there for like 400-500 years before Islam, right?
Yeah.
So you can feel the culture. I agree.
Yeah, just that's deeper. Especially coming from North America where our cultures doesn't exist. To actually have ancient cultures is really cool. So I was thinking about it. I was like, dang, I wonder if I could go there. I wonder if I could do the Hajj. And so, being
Illegal.
yes, right. So being an idiot that I am, I was trying to Google it. Okay, nothing here on Wikipedia. And then it hit me. Oh, I'll just go ask my Muslim friend. Of course, that makes more sense. And they gave me a pretty wishy answer at first. They were like, I don't know. And then they were like, no, I'm pretty sure you couldn't because non-Muslims aren't allowed in Mecca at all.
Yeah. I think you're not allowed in the square but the way they do that is checkpoints at the entrance to Mecca.
Yes.
So basically, yes.
Yeah, you're basically screened out of the city from the get-go.
Yeah. Here's a story that is super related and should make the also make the point how insipid and evil the Sauds are, right? The House of Saudi is, which all royal families are, right? They're just people, right?
Yeah.
And in the end of the day, they're rats, right? And they're animals. They'll do anything to survive.
Exactly.
But anyways,
to hold on to their power.
During the 70s, the Kaaba was taken by revolutionaries.
Ah.
Did you know that?
No.
And the Sauds couldn't take it back. The rebels were there for weeks, and so they sent French special forces in. And there's a rumor that they had all the French special forces convert to Islam before they entered the Kaaba to kill these. They killed the hostages and the fucking the revolutionaries, right? And then they reconverted to Catholicism once they left, right? So not only is the Saudis put in as these religious zealots that control like the most holy area for the Arabs, right? They also don't give a fuck about it. They're completely apostates, right? They're completely I don't know what the word is. They're blasphemous.
Yeah. I just completely unpious. What a two-faced maneuver.
Yeah, which, no judgment as another unpious, blasphemous piece of shit, right? But, like, you're the ones portraying yourselves to the world as, the inheritors of the mantle of Muhammad, or whatever, right?
Yeah, you're not the one calling jihads here, so I think there's a lot more on them to follow their religions and adhere to their doctrine, but what do I know?
Have I said that the Royal House of Saud is a direct descendant of Muhammad?
I don't think maybe you have. I kind of knew that, but or they claim it.
Yeah, not direct either. They're a descendant, right? Direct usually means unbroken male to male, but they're a descendant of Muhammad, and most of the royal families in the Arab world are. In fact, most of the nobility in the Arab world is. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about lineages. What time we got left? How much time we got?
We got like 4 minutes.
I got enough time for this bit.
Sure.
It's the Mongol bit that I've been working on in chat.
I was just about to bring that up.
I've been thinking about lineages and empires and things like that. And one of my favorite theories about why Europe went super dominant in the 1800s is that Europe was the only place in the entire world that didn't get absolutely shit stomped by the Mongols, right? Like wrecked beyond belief, right?
Yep.
Set back 1,000 years. There's talk about in the Iran area that the production of food and water and people in that area didn't return to pre-1200 levels until just before the Iraq War.
Oof.
And now we're back below to where they were again.
That's brutal,
isn't it? But anyways, the Mongols have this thing, right? What destroyed their empire was their fighting over succession, and what caused it was that the first of Genghis Khan's sons, his paternity couldn't be established 100%. He had four sons by his main wife, Borte, which are Joki, Chagatai, Ogadai, and Tului. Joki is the one we're talking about right now, the firstborn son. While his wife was pregnant, very early on, right? Or, as she was getting pregnant, she was kidnapped by a chief, an enemy chief. And then months later, Genghis Khan rescues her and sacrifices this chief to Tengri, right? Which is pretty badass. But what happens is that 25 years later, as Genghis Khan is not leading a chiefdom anymore, but, a grand empire, his second son, Chagatai, says, I'm not following that guy once you leave, right? Once you're dead, right? Like, he isn't my blood, right? And, who cares what he actually thought? It was a power play, no doubt, right? But what happened was that Genghis Khan skips the first and the second son because the first son's paternity can't be proven, and his second son's loyalty is at question, and he puts his third son in charge, right?
Sure.
And his third son is in charge, and then his third son's son is in charge, and then the fourth son's sons rebel and take over everything in connection with the first son's sons.
I see.
Right? So the two lineages, that the first and the fourth, they revolt to take power, right? And so, since the first can never be in charge because they can't establish that they're Chinggisids, they support their younger brother and say, "Have China, we'll take over Russia, and leave us the fuck alone," basically, right?
Yep. And that's the Yuan dynasty, baby.
Exactly, but the Mongols were everywhere forever, right? When the British showed up in India in the late early 1800s, all of India was ruled by Mughal emperors, right? And the Mughals started with this guy named Babar, right?
Right.
Babar is a male-to-male descendant of Timur-Lane, who is a Turkish conqueror who claimed to be descended from an ancestor of Genghis Khan. But Babar was also descended through the female line directly from Genghis Khan, right? So there were actual Chinggisids ruling India when the British showed up, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually part of why India was easy to conquer, right? Because there weren't Indians ruling it.
Yeah, they kicked them out and said, there you go, you're liberated. By the way, we rule you now.
But anyways, to close the bit, to let you go, it came out a few years ago that they tracked the Y haplogroup of claimed descendants of Jochi, whatever his name was, in West Russia and in East China. Both these lineages claimed to be descended from Jochi, and they proved that their last ancestor was somewhere in the 10 or 1100s, right? With all the other Chinggisids. And so that means that Genghis's great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather is the last male ancestor that they can prove is common. And what that means is Jochi was the rightful heir of the entire Mongol Empire.
After all these years.
If his brother had just not been a dick, if his wife had been not been captured, right?
Yeah.
We could be living under the Mongol Empire right now.
Yeah.
Like they would have conquered Europe, and Europe would never have gone ascendant.
Yeah. Then they would have figured out the boats and taken over the rest of the land.
Absolutely.
More pastures.
They had boats.
Yeah.
They just sucked out.
Yeah. They just kept sailing them into typhoons. Yeah, that's crazy. If just the subtle ways history can shift, and then suddenly the Mongols are everywhere.
Yeah, like a stone is dropped in a puddle and the ripples become tidal waves all of a sudden. I mean, like, just crazy.
Yeah. Bring back that genetic info to Jochi. Build a time machine.
Anyways, thanks for listening this week. Summer is coming.